All right, everybody, welcome back. You will probably remember that from a previous clip, I mentioned that there was a little thing that I was going to go back in and do a touch up on. This time, it is the character's left eye, the right eye that we're looking at. I feel that it's a little bit too close to his nostril, so I want to make a minor adjustment. And what I wanted to do was show you a way that you can make adjustments even though the piece is already inked. It's pretty much the exact same way we did when the piece was in pencil, but it allows us a way to pick up exactly where we were. You just magic wand it, you select what you want, and then you make the adjustment, and then you move forward with your inking. It was a quick, subtle adjustment, but it makes a little bit of difference that in the long run will impact the entire piece. So I've made the adjustment very quickly and already did the touch up inking around the area and have already moved forward with progressing with the inks. Now what I'm doing is I am adding a shading layer. So now, just like we did with the pencil version, I'm adding a shade ink layer. And the reason is, let's say I want to go in and do a little bit of touch up and not damage the hard line art that we did, but adjust the shading, the heavy blacks that we're going to throw in. There's a chance that you can go in, over render, make a mistake. Anything can happen, which is why we create these multiple layers, which give us multiple ways to make adjustments. You'll notice now what I'm doing is I'm adding those areas in ink that are open to interpretation. Remember, I said the outside shapes had to be as close to proper as possible, allowing with your style, of course. But the inside shapes were number one, open to interpretation. Number two, they do have to make sense. They do have to wrap around the muscle. They have to make indications that are believable. But they also have to be visually interesting. When I approach my shading, yes, I do take a look at the shapes of the muscle. I wrap the shadow around the muscle. I pick a definite point or two or three of lighting, but I also make sure that because there's no shades of gray, because this is a black and white illustration which will have some feathering in it, but what I do is I make sure that it is visually appealing. It has a graphic element to it as well, which also enhances the quality of the illustration and the interest of the illustration to the viewer. You'll also notice that I outline the shapes that I want to do, and then I go ahead and I fill it in. I've gotten to the point, because I have been doing this for long enough, where I can pretty much look at a piece and block out areas that I know I'm going to want to fill in. And it allows me the ability to just not waste time going in, filling in all the artwork. It allows me the ability to say, okay, I know this is going to be sectioned off. This is where the shadows are going to go. And it gives me the ability to speed up the process because there's less guesswork. Now, granted, there is a pencil layer that I'm working off of, and it is a very tight pencil layer, but it is still a blueprint. It's a fine blueprint, but it is still a blueprint nonetheless. Now, what I'm doing is I filled in the area in black and I'm going in and adding a little bit of feathering. The reason why I'm adding the feathering is because it adds a little bit more dimension to the hard edge shape. Some areas I would leave with a hard edge, other areas I would go in and feather out to give it a little bit of a gray tone effect, because remember, like I just said, we are working in black and white. There is no areas of gray. But by doing the feathering, it gives a little bit of an impression of the gray tone being there. It adds a little bit to the movement as well of the figure, and it just gives the viewer more stuff to look at that draws him or her into the illustration. And that is what is key. Drawing a pretty picture is wonderful, but a pretty picture that a viewer does not connect with is a pretty picture that ultimately nobody cares about. And if nobody's really caring about it, you failed as an artist, you failed as an illustrator, you definitely failed as an advertising illustrator as well. So you want to make sure that there are points of interest. You want to make sure that you also don't over render the image and make it muddy. So for this clip, what I've done is worked on filling in some of the blacks for the face, the blacks underneath the chin and the neck area. I filled in the black for the traps as well, and have added the feathering. The quality of the illustration that you will produce, the superhero that you will produce, is ultimately up to you. The amount of detail that you wish to put into it as well is up to you. I decided that I wanted to go a little bit more into the detail in the inks than I normally would, because this demonstration, this lesson on how to draw superheroes, is just on how to draw the superheroes, pencil and ink them in Photoshop. So I wanted to make sure that I created an illustration that was complete for you. Now, what I want everybody to do is remember, don't be scared to go in and use your eraser when needed, and don't be scared or too lazy to go in and adjust your brush width. It's huge. Those little variations add to the quality of the illustration. There we go. I'm lightening the opacity and everything's in place where it needs to be. For the next clip, we will be inking the torso of our superhero. I look forward to seeing you guys there.